the Blindfold Surprise Lust Story. Welcome to Lust Story, where we share tales of passion, desire, and the unexpected moments that ignite our deepest fantasies. Have you ever surrendered control completely to someone you trust? Have you felt that delicious anticipation when you don't know what's coming next? That's exactly what happened to Lily. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, nothing special about it. The sun streamed through the half-drawn curtains, casting warm patterns across the living room floor. Lily was lounging on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through her phone, catching up on social media, and responding to a few messages from friends. It was the kind of lazy weekend day where time seemed to stretch endlessly, with no obligations or appointments to disturb the peaceful rhythm of the house. When Marcus walked into the living room, Lily glanced up briefly, then did a double take. There was something different about him, that look on his face, that mischievous half-smile that always made her heart skip a beat. In their 5 years of marriage, she had come to know that expression well. It was the look that promised something unexpected was about to happen. "Come here," he said, extending his hand toward her. His voice had that playful edge to it, the one that always hinted at something exciting to come. He stood there, confident and mysterious, waiting for her to make the next move. Lily hesitated, looking up from her phone with curiosity dancing in her eyes. She set her phone down slowly, giving him her full attention. "What are you up to now?" she asked, already feeling a flutter of excitement in her stomach. That was one of the things she loved most about Marcus, his spontaneity, his ability to transform an ordinary day into something memorable. "Trust me," Marcus replied, his eyes twinkling with secrets. "Just go with it." The afternoon sunlight caught the golden flecks in his brown eyes, making them seem to glow with warmth and mischief. Lily stood up, smoothing down her casual weekend outfit, just leggings and an oversized sweater, nothing special. But the way Marcus was looking at her made her feel beautiful, desirable. She took a step toward him, already feeling the shift in the atmosphere between them, that electric tension that never seemed to diminish no matter how long they had been together. Before she could ask anything else, he pulled out a silk scarf from his pocket. The material gleamed in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, deep blue with subtle patterns woven into the fabric. Lily recognized it, a souvenir from their trip to Italy last year. The sight of it sent a thrill of anticipation through her body. "What's that for?" Lily asked, though she already had a suspicion. Her heart began to race as anticipation built within her. They had played with blindfolds before, but usually in the bedroom at night. Never in the middle of the afternoon, with sunlight pouring through the windows and the whole day stretching before them. Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he stepped behind her, so close she could feel the warmth of his body against her back. He gently swept her hair to one side, his fingers lingering on the sensitive skin of her neck. Goosebumps rose on her arms as he brought the scarf up to her eyes. With careful, deliberate movements, he tied the silk over her eyes, plunging her world into darkness. The scarf was cool and smooth against her skin, heightening every other sense as her vision was taken away. She could smell Marcus's cologne more intensely now, that woody, citrus scent that always reminded her of home. "Don't peek," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear, sending shivers down her spine. His lips brushed the sensitive spot just below her earlobe, a brief touch, but enough to make her breath catch. Lily laughed nervously, a mixture of excitement and anticipation bubbling up inside her. "Where are we going?" she asked, reaching back to touch him, needing that physical connection to ground her now that she couldn't see. Marcus simply shushed her with a gentle finger to her lips. "No questions," he murmured. "Just feel." He took her hand and carefully led her through their home. Lily could feel the textures changing beneath her feet, the plush carpet of the living room giving way to the cool tiles of the hallway, then back to carpet as they moved into another room. Without her sight, every sensation was magnified. The slight pressure of Marcus's hand guiding her, the faint scent of his cologne, the sound of their breathing in the quiet house. She tried to orient herself, to figure out where in their home they were going. The bedroom, the guest room. But Marcus kept changing directions, leading her in what seemed like circles until she lost all sense of direction. It was disorienting but thrilling, this complete surrender of control. They stopped somewhere, and Lily heard a door open. There was something different about the air here, a subtle change in temperature, perhaps, or a different quality to the silence. The room felt larger somehow, and there was a faint scent she couldn't immediately identify, something fresh, like clean linens or subtle cologne that wasn't Marcus's. "Just a moment," Marcus said, releasing her hand briefly. Lily stood still, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it could be heard across the room. The darkness of the blindfold made everything more intense. She strained her ears, trying to gather clues about what was happening. The rustle of clothing, footsteps moving across the floor, the soft click of a door closing, or was it opening? Then she heard it, another voice. Low, masculine, familiar somehow. She could hear Marcus talking to someone, their voices hushed but friendly. She couldn't make out the words exactly, but the tone was warm, comfortable, as if this visitor was expected, as if they had planned this together. "She doesn't know yet," she heard Marcus say just loud enough for her to catch. The other person responded, but their words were too quiet to distinguish. Her mind raced with questions. Who was this person? Why were they here? What had Marcus planned? Instead of feeling anxious, though, Lily felt a thrilling rush of anticipation course through her body. There was something incredibly exciting about not knowing, about surrendering to the moment and trusting Marcus completely. She heard footsteps approaching, and then felt Marcus's familiar presence beside her again. His hand found the small of her back, a gesture that was both possessive and reassuring. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked, his voice close to her ear. It was calm and steady, anchoring her in the darkness, but she could hear the undercurrent of excitement he was trying to contain. "Ready for what?" Lily whispered, barely able to get the words out past the excitement tightening her throat. Her whole body felt alive with anticipation, every nerve ending heightened by the deprivation of sight. "You'll see," he replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Or rather, you won't see, but you'll definitely feel." Suddenly, she felt hands on her shoulders, not Marcus's hands. These were different, slightly larger, the touch more hesitant, as if asking permission. Her breath caught in her throat as those unfamiliar hands gently caressed her arms, leaving goosebumps in their wake. The touch was respectful, but confident, as if the person knew exactly what they were doing, but was still seeking her consent. Marcus's hand remained on the small of her back, a reassuring presence letting her know he was still there, orchestrating this unexpected encounter. "Is this okay?" he murmured, his voice intimate against her ear. Lily nodded, unable to find words. Her mind was racing to identify the owner of those other hands. It had to be someone they both knew well, someone Marcus trusted completely. The touch felt practiced, confident, and not the awkward hesitation of a stranger, but the careful respect of someone who understood the significance of this moment. The stranger's hands moved with deliberate slowness, each touch electric against her skin. They traced a path from her shoulders down her arms, then back up again, never venturing beyond what would be considered respectful. Yet there was an undeniable sensuality to the movements, a clear intention that made Lily's heart race even faster. The air around them felt charged with intensity, the silence broken only by their breathing, which seemed to have synchronized into a shared rhythm. Lily felt herself surrendering to the moment, leaning into both the familiar touch of her husband and the exciting newness of this stranger's hands. "You can touch more," Marcus said softly, though Lily wasn't sure if he was speaking to her or to their mystery guest. Perhaps both. The stranger's hands became more exploratory, moving from her arms to her waist, resting there for a moment as if seeking further permission. When Lily didn't tense or pull away, those hands began to move again, tracing the curve of her hips with appreciative gentleness. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. Minutes could have been hours as the three of them moved in a careful, intimate dance. Marcus's voice occasionally guided them, soft and steady, ensuring Lily's comfort every step of the way. "Is this okay?" he would murmur, and Lily would nod, unable to form words through the sensations overwhelming her. Each time she nodded, the stranger's touch would become slightly bolder, slightly more intimate, but always respectful, always waiting for that unspoken permission. At some point, Lily realized they had been moving gradually across the room. The back of her legs touched what felt like a bed or a couch. Marcus's hands were on her waist now, gently guiding her to sit down. She complied, feeling the soft give of cushions beneath her. The sensations were almost overwhelming, the softness beneath her, the heat of bodies near her, the contrasting touches of two different pairs of hands. It wasn't just the physical feelings that took her breath away. It was the emotional intensity of the moment. The trust, the vulnerability, the complete surrender to an experience she hadn't known she wanted until it was happening. There was something profoundly intimate about being blindfolded, about giving up control and placing herself entirely in Marcus's hands, about knowing that he had arranged this, had chosen this specific person, had orchestrated every moment with her pleasure and comfort in mind. The stranger's touch remained respectful, following Marcus's subtle guidance. Lily could sense the unspoken communication between the two men, the careful way they moved around her, always prioritizing her comfort and pleasure. It was as if they had discussed this in detail, had established boundaries and signals to ensure everything remained within her comfort zone. At one point, she felt Marcus's lips brush against her neck, a familiar sensation that grounded her even as the stranger's hands continued their exploration. The contrast between the known and unknown, the familiar and the novel, created an intoxicating blend of sensations that left her breathless. "You're so beautiful," Marcus whispered against her skin, and she heard a murmur of agreement from the stranger. The dual appreciation sent a wave of pleasure through her body. The experience continued to unfold with a dreamlike quality, boundaries gradually expanding as Lily's comfort and consent remained clear. Throughout it all, Marcus remained her anchor, his voice, his touch, his presence the constant that made this surrender possible. When it was finally over, though Lily couldn't have said how much time had passed, Marcus gently removed the blindfold. The room was dimmer than she expected. He must have closed the curtains at some point. She blinked as her eyes adjusted to the light, finding herself looking into her husband's loving gaze. "Did you enjoy it?" he asked softly, searching her expression with tender concern. His eyes were dark with lingering desire, but there was something else there too, a love, pride, gratitude. Lily smiled, still slightly breathless, and nodded. Words seemed inadequate to express the whirlwind of emotions she felt, but Marcus understood. He always did. That was one of the things she loved most about him, his ability to read her, to know what she needed sometimes before she knew herself. Only then did she allow herself to look at their companion. The stranger, who Lily now recognized as Daniel, one of Marcus's closest friends, gave her a warm, respectful smile before looking away, giving her space to process. There was no awkwardness, no discomfort, just a shared moment of connection that felt surprisingly natural. Daniel was tall and athletic, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that Lily had always appreciated. They had known him for years. He had been Marcus's friend since college, had been at their wedding, had shared countless dinners and game nights with them. Now she realized they had shared something far more intimate, yet it didn't feel strange. It felt like a natural extension of the trust that already existed between them all. "I should go," Daniel said after a moment, his voice gentle. "Thank you both for trusting me with this." Marcus nodded, reaching out to clasp his friend's shoulder. "Thank you," he said simply, and the two men shared a look of understanding that spoke volumes about their friendship. After Daniel left, Marcus sat beside Lily, taking her hands in his. "Are you really okay?" he asked, all playfulness gone, replaced by genuine concern. "Was it too much? I wanted to surprise you, but I never want to push you too far." Lily squeezed his hands, touched by his concern. "It was perfect," she said honestly. "Unexpected, but perfect." Relief washed over Marcus's face. "I've been planning it for weeks," he admitted, "trying to figure out if you'd be open to it, who would be the right person, how to make sure you felt safe the entire time." "Daniel was a good choice," Lily said, surprised by how easy it was to discuss this. "I trust him, and I know you do too." Marcus nodded. "That's why I asked him. There's no one else I would have trusted with something this important, this intimate." Later that evening, as they sat together with glasses of wine on their back patio, the sun setting in brilliant oranges and pinks behind the trees, Marcus explained more about how much thought he'd put into planning this surprise. "I've been thinking about doing this for a while," he admitted, his fingers tracing patterns on the back of her hand. "But I wanted to make sure everything was perfect, that you would feel safe and cherished throughout." "I talked to Daniel about it a couple of weeks ago, laid out exactly what I had in mind, the boundaries, the signals we would use." "Signals?" Lily asked, curious about the level of planning that had gone into the experience. Marcus nodded. "We had signals between us, ways I could let him know if something was too much, or if he should back off. I was watching you the whole time, making sure you were comfortable. If I'd seen any sign of distress, we would have stopped immediately." The revelation of how carefully he had considered her feelings, her safety, her pleasure made Lily's heart swell with emotion. This hadn't been a casual whim, but a thoughtfully orchestrated experience designed specifically for her. "How did you know I would be okay with this?" Lily asked, genuinely curious. They had discussed fantasies before, but never anything quite like this. "I never told you I wanted something like this." Marcus smiled, taking her hand in his. "I know you," he said simply. "I've seen how you respond when we watch certain movies, how your breath changes when we talk about certain scenarios. I've noticed the books you read, the stories that capture your imagination." He paused, his gaze intense. "But more than that, I know you trust me. I wanted to show you that love can have layers, trust, excitement, and even a little mystery. Sometimes it's the unexpected that makes everything more beautiful." Lily couldn't help but laugh, shaking her head in amazement. "You're always full of surprises," she teased, but deep down, she felt profound gratitude for how thoughtful he was. It wasn't just about the experience itself, but about how carefully he had considered her feelings, ensuring she would be comfortable every step of the way. "Why Daniel?" she asked, curious about his choice. There were other friends they were close to, other men Marcus trusted. Marcus's expression became more serious. Because he's someone I know would respect boundaries and understand the significance of this moment, he explained. He's not judgmental, he's naturally respectful, and he cares about both of us. I wanted everything to be perfect, and I knew he'd help make it that way. There's a level of trust that was important. He took a sip of his wine, considering his next words carefully. Also, I've seen the way he looks at you sometimes, not disrespectfully, but with appreciation. I knew he would make you feel beautiful, desired, without overstepping. The admission surprised Lily. You noticed that? Marcus nodded. Of course. I'm not blind, and I'm not insecure. I know other men find you attractive. That's never bothered me. What mattered was finding someone who would appreciate you the way you deserve, but who I also trusted completely. Hearing him explain his reasoning made Lily's heart swell with emotion. This hadn't been just about orchestrating an exciting moment. It had been about creating something meaningful, something that deepened their connection in ways she hadn't anticipated. That night, as they lay in bed together, Lily found herself replaying the afternoon in her mind. The initial surprise, the thrilling uncertainty, the gentle touches, the gradual building of sensation and emotion. But more than the physical experience, she kept returning to the trust she'd placed in Marcus, and how beautifully he had honored that trust. She curled against him, feeling closer to him than ever before. His arm wrapped around her, pulling her close with that familiar possessiveness that always made her feel safe and cherished. Thank you, she whispered into the darkness. Marcus shifted, turning to face her. For what? For knowing me better than I know myself sometimes. For pushing boundaries while making me feel completely safe. For orchestrating something so intimate and making it feel natural and beautiful. He kissed her forehead gently. Always, he promised. That's what love is, isn't it? Seeing the desires someone hasn't even acknowledged to themselves. Creating space for exploration and growth. Lily nodded against his chest, feeling overwhelmed by the depth of connection between them. In that moment, she realized that what they had shared that afternoon wasn't just about physical pleasure or novelty. It was about the profound intimacy that comes from truly seeing someone, from creating space for them to discover new facets of themselves in complete safety. Over the next few days, the memory of that afternoon stayed with Lily, replaying in her mind like a favorite song. It wasn't just about what had happened. It was about how it had made her feel alive, cherished, and deeply connected to the man she loved. She found herself smiling at random moments throughout her day while making coffee, during her commute to work, in the middle of meetings. Thinking about Marcus's mischievous grin and the careful way he had orchestrated everything. The experience had added a new dimension to their relationship, a deeper level of trust and intimacy that permeated even their most ordinary interactions. Their texts to each other during the day took on a new playfulness, a shared secret that made even the most mundane messages feel charged with meaning. Thinking of Sunday, she would text, and receive back a simple "me too," the blue heart, a reference to the silk scarf that now held such significance. When she met her closest friend, Emma, for coffee that weekend, Emma immediately noticed something different about her. "You're glowing," Emma said, studying her face curiously as they settled at their usual table at the corner cafe. "What's going on with you? You look, I don't know, different, happy in a new way." Lily blushed slightly, unsure how much to share. She and Emma had always been open with each other, but this felt particularly intimate. Still, she found herself wanting to express some of the joy she was feeling. "Marcus surprised me with something special last weekend," she said, keeping the details vague, but unable to hide her smile. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, feeling the warmth spread through her fingers. Emma raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Must have been some surprise. You look happier than I've seen you in months. And that's saying something. You two have always been sickeningly in love." Her tone was teasing but affectionate. "It was unexpected," Lily admitted, taking a sip of her latte. "But amazing. He knows me so well, you know. Knows exactly what I need, sometimes before I do. Knows how to make me feel special, how to push me just enough out of my comfort zone, but never too far." Emma watched her thoughtfully. "That's rare, you know, that level of attunement. Not everyone has that." "I know," Lily said softly. "I don't take it for granted." Emma shook her head with a smile. "You're so lucky," she said. "Not everyone has a partner who knows how to keep the spark alive like that after 7 years together. Most couples I know are deep in Netflix and Sweats territory, not whatever this is that's making you glow like you swallowed the sun." Her friend's words made Lily reflect more deeply on her relationship. It wasn't just luck, she realized. It was the effort they both put into their marriage, the constant communication, the willingness to be vulnerable with each other. It was Marcus's attentiveness, the way he noticed the small things, like how her eyes lingered a moment too long on certain scenes in movies, or how her breath caught at particular passages in books she read. It was also her openness, her willingness to trust him, to follow where he led even when it meant stepping into the unknown. Their relationship thrived because they both contributed to it, both prioritized it above almost everything else. "It's not just luck," Lily said finally. "It's work, good work, work we both enjoy, but still it's intentional. We make time for each other. We talk. We pay attention." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "You make it sound so simple." "The principles are simple," Lily replied with a small smile. "The execution is the hard part." When she returned home that afternoon, she found Marcus in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. The simple domesticity of the scene, him in worn jeans and a t-shirt, barefoot, moving comfortably in their shared space, filled her with a rush of affection. This was the man who had orchestrated such an intimate, boundary-pushing experience, and here he was, doing the most ordinary of tasks with the same care and attention. She approached him from behind, wrapping her arms around his waist and pressing a kiss between his shoulder blades. He leaned back into her embrace, setting down the knife. "What was that for?" he asked, turning in her arms to face her. "For being you," she said simply. "For the big gestures and the small ones. For chopping vegetables and planning elaborate surprises. For all of it." He smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're in a mood," he observed, but his eyes were warm with pleasure at her words. "I had coffee with Emma," Lily explained. "She said I was glowing, that I looked different. It made me think about us, about how lucky we are." Marcus's smile deepened. "We are lucky," he agreed. "But we also work at it, don't we? This doesn't happen by accident." "That's exactly what I told her," Lily said, struck again by their synchronicity, the way their minds often moved along the same tracks. He leaned down to kiss her, a gentle, tender kiss that held the promise of so much more. "Speaking of working at it," he murmured against her lips, "I've been thinking about another surprise." A thrill ran through Lily at his words. "Oh, really?" she asked, her voice dropping to match his intimate tone. "Care to share any details?" Marcus grinned, that same mischievous smile that had started their adventure a week ago. "Now, where would be the fun in that? You'll just have to trust me." "I do," Lily said, and realized the depth of truth in those simple words. She trusted him completely, with her body, her heart, her deepest desires, even the ones she hadn't yet acknowledged to herself. As weeks passed, Lily found that the blindfold experience had changed something fundamental in their relationship, not because they needed fixing, but because it had shown them how much further they could go together, how many more layers there were to explore in their connection. The changes weren't always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it was as simple as a new openness in their conversations, a willingness to discuss fantasies and desires they might have kept private before. Sometimes it was a new quality to their everyday intimacy, a look that lingered longer, a touch that carried more meaning, a kiss that felt deeper somehow. They didn't rush to replicate the experience, understanding that part of what made it special was its uniqueness. But the possibility of future exploration hung between them like a promising secret, adding a subtle charge to even their most routine interactions. Daniel remained a part of their lives, a dinner guest, a friend they met for drinks occasionally, and there was no awkwardness, no discomfort in those encounters. If anything, there was a new depth to the friendship, a shared understanding that didn't need to be acknowledged explicitly. Sometimes Lily would catch Daniel's eye across the dinner table and see a flash of knowing appreciation, quickly replaced by the easy camaraderie that had always characterized their relationship. One evening, as Lily and Marcus curled up on the couch watching a movie, she rested her head on his shoulder and felt a rush of gratitude for the man beside her. For his creativity, his thoughtfulness, his ability to push boundaries while always making her feel safe. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Lily smiled up at him. "Just how lucky I am to have a husband who surprises me, who keeps things exciting, who knows me better than I know myself sometimes." Marcus kissed her forehead gently. "I feel the same way about you," he said, his voice warm with sincerity. "You're willing to trust me, to follow where I lead even when it's unexpected. That's a gift, Lily. Not everyone would be so open, so brave." "We're good together, aren't we?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "We're good together," he confirmed. "We always have been. And we'll keep getting better. Keep discovering new aspects of each other. Keep growing together." And he was right. They were good together in all the ordinary ways, and now in this extraordinary new dimension they had discovered. Their relationship had always been strong, but this experience had added a new depth, a new level of trust and intimacy that made everything richer. The blindfold afternoon, as Lily had come to think of it, became a cherished memory, one that she would revisit in quiet moments. But more than that, it became a turning point, a moment that reminded them both that growth and exploration didn't end when you settled into marriage, that there were always new territories to discover together, new ways to surprise each other, new depths to their connection. In the months that followed, they continued to explore, to push boundaries, to deepen their understanding of each other's desires. Sometimes those explorations involved others, carefully selected friends, or even new acquaintances who brought their own energy and perspective to the dynamic. Sometimes it was just the two of them, discovering new facets of desire in the privacy of their relationship. But always, always, there was that foundation of absolute trust, of careful communication, of boundaries respected, and consent prioritized above all else. Marcus never stopped checking in, never stopped reading her responses, never pushed too far too fast. And Lily never stopped trusting him, never stopped following where he led, never stopped expressing her gratitude for his intuitive understanding of her needs. What would you do if your partner blindfolded you and led you into the unknown? Would you trust them completely? Would you surrender to the experience? Or would fear hold you back from discovering new dimensions in your relationship? Lily's story reminds us that sometimes the most exhilarating moments in life come when we let go of control and place our trust in someone who truly knows us, our desires, our boundaries, and our hearts. That love isn't just about grand gestures, but about creating a foundation secure enough to explore those edges together. In the years that followed, Lily and Marcus continued to surprise each other, to challenge each other, to create moments of connection that transcended the ordinary. The blindfold afternoon remained special, the beginning of a journey that would span decades, a cornerstone moment in the architecture of their shared life. They didn't share the details of their intimate life with many people, but occasionally, when friends would ask the secret to their enduring happiness, their obvious connection, even after years together, Lily would smile and say simply, "Trust. Complete, absolute trust." Because that, ultimately, was what had made it all possible, not just the blindfold afternoon, but everything that came after. The trust that allowed them to explore, to play, to push boundaries, while always keeping each other safe. The trust that made their love not just enduring, but constantly evolving, constantly deepening, constantly discovering new territory. As Lily sits writing this, she feels that same flutter of excitement she felt when Marcus first pulled out that silk scarf. Life with him continues to be an adventure, sometimes quiet and comfortable, sometimes wildly exhilarating, but always grounded in deep trust and understanding. If you've made it this far in her story, perhaps you're reflecting on your own relationship, on the trust you share with your partner, on the boundaries you might be afraid to push, on the adventures waiting just beyond your comfort zone. Remember that the most beautiful experiences often begin with a simple invitation. Trust me. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to say yes, to step into the unknown with someone you trust completely, to let yourself be surprised. Stay tuned for more stories that explore the boundaries of trust, desire, and intimacy on Lust Story, where passion meets possibility and where the most unexpected moments often lead to the deepest connections.